What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Chapter 4 Season 2, giving my thoughts and review on it, and what I would give this season out of 10. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what you would give Chapter 4 Season 2 from a 1 to 10 scale, obviously 10 being better, 1 being super bad, because we are only a few days away from Chapter 4 Season 3, which is super exciting. The first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the map changes, because for me personally, this is always the most important thing when it comes to a new Fortnite season, is how the map changes and how the map evolves over time. And I think the map changes this season were very, very good. I'm not the biggest fan of Mega City, but the fact that we got an entire new biome with 4 new POIs is massive, and it feels much more similar to Chapter 1 style map changes where we get an entire new biome than we have had in recent chapters where Chapter 3, for example, we did have some map changes and some development on the map, but it was much more gradual, the reality tree taking over the map, the chrome taking over the map, than just new season, here's a whole new biome, here's several new POIs, go have fun. I definitely prefer that style of map change where we do get large significant changes to the map over time, and so that is very, very good in my opinion. And based on leaks and rumors about what we can expect for next season, it seems like we're also going to be getting an entirely new biome next season. The katana is also a big part of this season, and is probably my favorite mobility item ever in Fortnite. It was great for getting around the map quickly and repositioning in fights, but it wasn't so spammable that someone could just use it to completely avoid fighting altogether, because it only had 3 uses, or 2 if you had a blue one. And also you couldn't use it to just have free high ground in build mode. One of my least favorite things about some of the mobility items in this game is how they impact builds, because with the shockwave hammer, the shockwave bow, or even just the regular shockwave grenade, some players will just box up when it comes to a build fight and then just shockwave height, or slam their hammer up and take height off that. Whereas the katana, it wouldn't break build, so you couldn't just spam it in build fights, and you had to actually be able to build, which was super nice. You could use it to take high ground, but you had to do it properly, because if you did it incorrectly or at the wrong time, it was very easy for the opponent to shoot at you. So I feel the katana is just probably the most balanced mobility item we've ever had in the games, in terms of being very, very good, but also not just completely breaking the game. It did have a melee aspect, which I would much prefer if the melee items, or the mobility items, were just mobility items and there was no attack on it at all. But compared to the shockwave hammer from last season, I found the melee of the katana much less irritating to deal with. If someone used it properly, it was very easy for them to kill you, and it was kind of difficult to deal with once you got hit by it. But I feel it was way more inconvenient for people to hit you with it than it was the hammer. I mean, if you guys played last season, you could be standing a decent distance away from somebody, they smack that hammer down and you're sent flying. Whereas the katana, the person really had to be on target when it comes to meleeing you. So I feel the katana was just much more balanced than the shockwave hammer, and it was a very, very fun mobility item to have in the game until it was eventually removed, which we will get to later on. The loot pool this season, I think, was just fine. It wasn't exceptionally good, it wasn't exceptionally bad either. The havoc pump was took some getting used to at the start, but it was a fine weapon. Overall, I don't care that much about the loot pool as long as it's okay. The loot pool being bad can really, really, ruin a season. But if the loot pool is fine, then it's fine. And a lot of the good Fortnite loot pools, in my opinion, are just all kind of the same, so it doesn't really change the game up that much. That's why the map changes are the thing that kind of keeps the game fresh to me, because if you look at Fortnite metas in the past, it's almost always some form of AR and some form of pump shotgun. Sometimes there's an SMG in there. There's mobility and heals. What people use is often very standard. So as long as the loot pool isn't bad, it's fine for me. Augments were also much weaker this season, which is a kind of divisive topic. Personally, I like the augments being weaker. They're just nice little bonuses that are good to have, faster light ammo reload, slightly larger magazine on your medium ammo weapons, the one that you mantle something and then you get stamina for it, or you get increased sprint time for it. I think all these augments are just fine, nice little bonuses to have, but they're not like changing the game drastically for you, or you don't feel like you get this and then like your odds of winning have gone significantly up. Whereas like if you look at the augments last season, we had like Storm Mark, Forecast was in both, but it was nerfed this season. Soaring Sprints, Bow Specialist, and Shockwave Bow last season was an insane combo. And like when you had some of those augments, I feel like your odds of winning just went up. Like if you had Storm Mark, your chances of winning that game increased. Whereas like these augments, they help, but they're not too broken. And I personally prefer that because I hate having to re-roll augments for a while. You know, I mean, we've all been there. If you want one specific augment, it takes forever to get it sometimes. And I feel like last season had a lot more augments like that you kind of had to re-roll for. Like if you got the bow, then you definitely want Bow Specialist, you know, and then you're just searching for it in your like re-roll selection. Whereas this season, I didn't really feel that way about any of the augments really, unless I wanted to get gameplay of one for a specific video. I would just usually take whichever was like the first one to come up that I thought was decent. Like if First Strike came up, I'm down for that. If more parkour came up, I'm down for that. If like Slap Surplus came up, like whichever one I thought was just okay that happened to come up first was usually going to be the one I would take. So I like the augments being weaker, but some people kind of prefer it the other way. It's just like a matter of preference. And then the mid-season update this season was not that great. It was just Star Wars themed. I don't think it was nearly as good as the Most Wanted update last season, but I'm still super happy that they did go for some sort of big mid-season update with like lots of changes coming in. And like a whole new like battle pass thing to level through. I think it's very good. And I say mid-season update, but I feel like both Most Wanted and the Star Wars update were more like 3/4 of the way update. Like it's decently late into the season, and then we get like a whole new battle pass style thing to level up. We get a whole new like lots of changes into the gameplay. I think is very good. So even though this Star Wars one wasn't what I would prefer personally, I'm still like very happy that they, you know, went for one of these large updates late into the season. And I think if they keep doing this season to season, it's definitely going to be something that's overall good for the game, even if there are ones that like the Star Wars one aren't the greatest thing to me. Creative 2.0 also came out this season. I feel like a lot of people forget that. It was very hyped for years and years and years. People were looking forward to it for a long time. And I think a lot of people kind of viewed it as a disappointment or not really worth the hype or wait. But I think it's just really misunderstood because Creative 2.0 is basically mod tools for Fortnite that allow people to make whatever they want in game. So if you give people the tools to make something crazy, like the first few weeks of that being out, they're probably not going to have something too crazy yet. Like I feel like it's going to be like another year or two before we can really judge whether or not Creative 2.0 is a success. And we will see lots of high quality maps as the year goes on. This was like much more like an investment in the long term than something that was just going to drop and then be fun to play with right away. But I do think we will get a lot of insane maps and a lot of insane creations in the future. Recently, Epic kind of posted what could be expected to be annual payouts for some of these maps. And like the top 5 creations will be making like $10 million a year, which is pretty crazy. And if that keeps up into the future, I definitely think we'll see a lot of like ridiculous maps made in Creative 2.0 that will just further kind of increase the replayability of Fortnite. Another thing that released this season is going to be ranked mode. It came super late into the season, which was nice to have something towards the end of the season to play for. Like I said, the Star Wars update was probably about 3/4 of the way through. Ranked mode came at the end of that, so even later in the season, we were still getting content added to the game. And obviously, it isn't perfect. But it is something that the competitive community has been asking for years. So for this finally to come out, I think is great. And I'm also just super happy that this finally brought a lower mat cap and siphon to pubs. This is something I've wanted ever since they took it out in 2019. At the start of the season, if you came to me and were like, you could change any one thing about the game, it would be this. 500 mat cap of each. Faster farm rate. It makes you have to do more with less material in pubs, but you get it back faster, so you're not as punished for fighting. And endgame doesn't just feel like, oh, the person who farms all game and gets 1,000 of each material and then hides in third party's last fight has a distinct advantage. It just makes fights go faster and really reduces the advantage that players just hiding and conserving materials have. So I'm very happy this is in the game. HP Siphon would have also been great to see, but if I had to choose one, it definitely would be the Matte Siphon. So I'm happy to see that added to the game, and I do think ranked mode will just kind of continue to improve over time. So those are all like kind of the things that happened this season that I thought were worth mentioning, and the things I liked. Now we're going to get into the things that I really didn't like, and that is the first thing is going to be the mythics this season. I've never really been the biggest fan of mythics or vaults in Fortnite, but I feel like this season the mythics created like an incredibly formulaic and repetitive way to play the game. Like, if you guys play this season, you know, if you want to get a win, land at a vault location or land near a vault location, get there by second zone, eliminate the boss, get the mythic pump and the slurps, exist until fourth zone, get the pulse rifle, and then from there, just win the game. Like, it was very, very formulaic, and like the pulse and the pump did get nerfed, but even after the nerfs, they were still incredibly good, and it was one of those things that, like, if you didn't go for it, you just felt like you were going to die to it. And especially, I feel like in the higher skill lobbies, you know, if most of the people that you're fighting are going to be good, then you don't want to let them have a much better shotgun than you, or the pulse rifle, which is just a ridiculous item, or even slurps. If somebody you're fighting has slurps and you don't, you have a very distinct like disadvantage in that fight. I would be interested to see what percentage of players who won the game had one of these mythics in their inventory. That would be incredibly interesting to see. They're just very, very good, and I feel like the way you wanted to play around it just was very repetitive. I think it would have been better if they just got like vaulted at some point during the season. I don't care how that happens, just like explain it away in the story or whatever. But me personally, like the thing that makes the game fun for me is like landing at different POIs and rotating around the map in different ways. That's like one of the things that keeps the game really fresh. And I feel like that's one of the things that makes BRs really unique, is that every game can be completely different based on where you land, where you rotate to, where you happen to run into other people, and where the storm ends up going. But pretty much all of those factors, aside from storm, were the same most games. Like, you were going to land somewhere near the vault location or at the vault location. You were going to go there. Other people were going to go there. So you were going to be having like the same fights almost every game and like the same areas, you know, that played out very similarly. And then depending on where island spawned, a lot of those fights were the same as well. Like, if you guys played a bunch this season, I feel like you know what I'm talking about. It is an interesting concept, but I feel like it got old pretty quick for me. And like I said, it just felt like you were putting yourself at a massive disadvantage if you didn't go for that. And so I wasn't the biggest fan of that. I feel like this was probably the most repetitive season of Fortnite that I've ever played. The zones at the start of the season were also terrible. They were very, very slow. They like reworked them and added more storm phases into the game. I think to make room for like people going to the vault in second zone, fighting over combat cache in zone 3, and then going to the island in zone 4. Like, they wanted these scripted kind of conflicts happening at certain zones. And so they changed the way the storm works and added more time between the zones and stuff. And at the start of the season, it was very, very, very bad. But later on the line, they did fix it. I think they updated it several times and kind of inched them more towards what was ideal. And I think the zones now are better than they were before. So this is like kind of one of those things where it was really bad at the start, but it's like taking a step backwards to take a few forward. It did eventually get much better. Another thing that really stunk for the season was removing the katana. At the end of the season, I think like the final 2.5 weeks or so, the katana was removed. And I feel like this soured a lot of people's opinions on the season, combined with like the repetitive nature of it. But this is one of those things where, like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it really matters. You know, this season was 90 plus days long. I think the final 2 weeks of it really aren't that big of a deal. And like, me personally, you could give me the most perfect Fortnite season ever, but you tell me there's a new one in like a few days, I'm going to be more excited for that anyway. So I feel like I'm almost always kind of less interested in the game towards the end of seasons, no matter what. Like, even some of my favorite seasons ever, I was like very ready for the next one to come. It's just kind of how like the seasonal nature of a game like this works. So the end of the season definitely wasn't as good as it could have been because of the removal of the katana. We did have the web shooters and the ODM gear, but it just felt... they just don't feel as fun to use after using the katana. I feel like you could play more aggressive with the katana and quickly kind of get in and out of fights, whereas like the web shooters and the ODM gear, it's much more risk reward involved for it, and some people like that, some people don't. Another thing that kind of made the end of the season not the greatest is the lack of an end of season event. So I think, like I said before, like, no matter what, at the end of the season, people are just going to be bored of it and looking forward to the next thing. But when there's an event, at least everybody's kind of looking forward to that and talking about that rather than just waiting for the season to end. This season doesn't have an end of season event, and as of the time I'm recording this, it's actually the year anniversary of the Collision event. So it's been about a year since we had an actual event in Fortnite, because the Fracture event was just like terrible. So that just sucks. I feel like any Fortnite season without an event, that's just going to kind of be one of the things that's like kind of mentioned at the end, is whether or not it had an event and whether or not that event was good. This season didn't have one, and I feel like that's pretty lackluster. There still was a decent amount of development on the map, or like kind of teasers for next season, with like the earthquakes happening and like the cracks on the map and the vines. whatever was going on with Serenade and her like monoliths or whatever was going on there. I'm not really sure, but there was some development. It's not like the season just ended and we don't know what's going on. There was some development, but I feel like always, Fortnite is kind of known for the event. So overall, I think the season was very good. A lot of the kind of things that I thought were bad, like the zones that got fixed, the stuff at the end, that's just going to kind of naturally be the case anyways, I think. So I think the season was very good. I would give it like an 8 or an 8.5. I also think like Chapter 4, Season 1 and 2 is probably better than the first 2 seasons of any chapter. It's kind of tough to compare. Chapter 1, a lot of people loved the game back then, myself included, but like it was very, very bare bones in Season 1 and 2. Chapter 2, Season 1 and 2, there was so many delays. I think if those seasons came out and ended on time, whatever, then Chapter 2 start would probably be the best. But so far, I think the start of Chapter 4 has been incredible, and I'm very kind of eager to see what happens in the second half, because it is seeming like Chapter 4 will only be 4 seasons like Chapter 3, so this is kind of the halfway point. Let me know down in the comments below what you would give this season, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.